So today topic is just an overview for the refinery. So this material, what I have collected, it is actually only the purpose is the education. And this material has been extracted from the textbooks, reports, and some research papers. And all the images which has been presented during this presentation, and no specific project images has been used because of the confidentiality. And all the effort has been made to use.
Mr. Yasin, you mute yourself.
So all the copyright material, we have tried it our best. We start with safety. This part of the world, spring is coming, and there are some notes we can take it. We have to have all the doors and windows to be locked, all the lawn equipment to be secured. Whenever you try to have the lawn mowing, please clean up first and wear the safety shoes because you don't know you are going to have after a long time. So some debris are there, so be careful about that, and always secure your windows. Flow of presentation. I believe there is a delay. Yeah. So flow of presentation. We're going to start with the introduction to the crude oil, and then there is a snapshot of the refinery history. I will take about 5 minutes, but there is no break, I believe, in this. And then we go to directly to the refinery processes overview. We start with desalting, distillation and fractionation, reforming, cracking and its type, storage and transportation. If we have more time, we will go to the world energy demand and supply. Let's start. This is my slide for history of the refinery industry. This history goes back 3000 C when they were using asphalt as an adhesive, and Egyptians were using it for the greasing the chariot wheel, and the Mesopotamian used the bitumen to seal the boats. Around 600 BC, Confucius wrote about drilling a 100-feet gas well and using bamboo pipes to extract that gas from the well. Around 1200 AD, I believe, 1200 AD, Persian mined seep oil near Baku, which is Azerbaijan now. Around 1500 AD times, Chinese dig an oil well, which is more than 2000 feet deep. Late 1847, first rock oil refinery in England, and 1849, Canada distills kerosene from crude oil. 1856, world first refinery in Romania, and 1859, Pennsylvania oil boom begins with 69 feet oil wells producing 35 barrels per day. That was the capacity at that time. 1859, oil refinery built in Baku, Azerbaijan, and 1860-61 refineries built in Pennsylvania in US. 1870, US largest oil export. Yes, he was the exporter at that time also, and we can see that in 2019 also, they were the first exporter in the world. So they were second biggest export from the US 1870 also. And then first drive-in filling station 1930. This was the early World War I around that time. So this is few images from this California oil wells and refinery, 1867. This well is actually very popular. It is the very earliest well, 1870, drilled and commercially producing 1876, and it was just shut down in 1990. So more than 100 years this well was working. Few more images. This is a render image of first refinery in Romania, and then in Richmond refinery, still it is in the US, expanding. This is adding more and more unit to this. This refinery is still in working, and this is the first oil district, LA, Los Angeles. Some of the usage of this, the construction, mummification, it was the early use of it. Waterproofing in the boat, as we have mentioned earlier. Home lamp for reading and lighting the home. Heating home, this is the also main of the purpose. And to heat the solution, brine solution, to get the salt, and street lamps. Now we're gonna go into the processes. So crude oil, which we are taking from the ground, it has major component is a hydrocarbon. That hydrocarbon, it varies from 50% to 97% of its content, depending on where you are extracting and how you are extracting it. The organic component portion of it, 6 to 10%, is the sulfur, nitrogen, and oxygen. Around 1% or less than 1% is the metals, it's a copper, nickel, vanadium. And it looks like you can see on the right bottom column, how it is, looks like it's like if we see the charcoal, very similar to that when we extracted it from the ground. So this crude oil, how heavy and how light it is, we are using an API gravity value. If the value is less than 10, which is the case in Canada, SAGD, all those are heavy oil. If it is more than that, it goes from medium to lighter. If it is very light, it is more expensive. We will see later on. The other benchmark is a sulfur content. If the sulfur contents are less than 0.5% ppm, it's called sweet. And if it is more than that, it's called sour. Sources of that, Canadian, you can see that Canadians crude oil is under sour, Gulf of Mexico, South American nations, and most Middle Eastern. Sweet form of crude oil is in central US, North Sea region of Europe, and much of Africa, and the Asia Pacific region. Please note that for the sweet crude oil, less purification processes are required. So it's cheaper to produce it rather than sour. In the market, we have the different standards. One standard which is used is West Texas Intermediate, which is WTI, and Brent North Sea, because Brent can also be a Ho Chi Minh, which is called Brent Hu. Those are the benchmark. What we have using is Brent North Sea and WTI. You can see that the value of WTI and the Brent North Sea are approximately in the range of 40 API gravity. OPEC basket in the Middle East, the API value is around 32.7, and it has a sulfur content. So as per the definition, it is sour. Now we see that this slide shows you a journey of the petroleum from source to end user. So on left hand side, these are the sources, the crude oil from the well at the top left corner, and then you can see that the jack pump and the crude oil from the offshore, number 3, and crude oil from the overseas tanker. We are taking this into the we call it storage on the land. That is the first one when once you are getting it, and from here it moved towards the refinery. We will use this refinery today in our process. So from the refinery product, I'm talking about at the top right hand side, it goes to the manufacturer, the petrochemical plants, and all the items derived from there as a wholesale and retail sales. Other product actually is going towards the storage of the bulk product towards the aeroplane, like a kerosene, jet oil. You can see that that is a very another use from the refinery products, transportation. So that's also a part coming out of the refinery products. We call them refined products. Transmission line, through the transmission line it goes to the storage facilities, and at the end, if you see the local gasoline delivery station is the last one, which what we used for the transportation of the automobiles. These slides give you an overall idea how this product actually starts and what are the different usages, what are the different processes we use in the refinery. This one slide will give you all the idea, and few of them we will discuss more in detail today. On the left hand side, you can see that the crude oil is a storage facility. From the storage facility, it goes to the desalting. It's a first step. We will discuss more in detail as we progress in this presentation. From the desalting, it goes into the atmospheric distillation. And in atmospheric distillation, you have two ends. One is at the top, is a lighter end, and one is at the bottom, which is the heavier end. We call it atmospheric residue. So we will talk about this vacuum distillation more in details later on. From the vacuum distillation, it goes into the coke drum, and from that, on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see residual treating and blending facility, and it goes to the submarines or pipeline as a bitumen. From the mid part of it, it has naphtha at the top from the atmospheric distillation. I don't know if you can, my pointer, I can see that, but for the atmospheric distillation at the top is called naphtha. And there is in middle, we call it kerosene. So that kerosene extraction from the atmospheric. Naphtha actually treated as a catalytic reaction, isomerization, and it goes to gasoline blending because you produce a different grade. You can see that at a gas station we have a different grade, so depending on what we are using it, so this blending gives you more different types of grades what we use in our automobiles. In the middle, SR middle distillate, which is at the bottom of the in the intermediate, we use catalytic cracking, and from here the main product is actually a diesel, what we used in our transportation. At the top, which is a lighter end, from here we receive as deethanizer, depentanizer, and we remove the sulfur with the help of Claus process or super Claus process, and it gives you the LPGs. This slide, this slide is showing you the same what we have described earlier. Distillation, physical, there are physical process distillation, solvent extraction, solvent dewaxing, propane and blending, and thermal processes, whisk breaking, delayed coking, fluid coking, and flexi coking. Catalytic, we will few of them we will discuss. Fluid catalytic cracking, hydrotreating, catalytic reforming, catalytic dewaxing, hydrocracking, isomerization. These are a few processes.
Yes, Mr. Yasin, where was the LNG on your previous slide? Somebody asked that. Can you go back to the previous slide and show where the LNG is?
Okay, at the top right corner, just so if you see this on the slide, yeah, now you can see. If you see at the LPG at the right top, so this is where from here you're going to get the this is the liquefied petroleum gases, which has a combination of methane, ethane. From here you will get that processes further into the downstream refinery processes. So LNG is different than LPG. LPG is a combination of methane, ethane, all of those, and LNG is which is further down from here would be the liquefied natural gas. I move now to our next slide. So the product, which is the barrel of 1 barrel from the crude oil, about 47% of that you can receive as a gasoline in the processes, and from that barrel, 23% you can get diesel fuel and heating oil. Or other products are jet fuel is only 10%, liquefied petroleum is only 4%, and asphalt at the bottom you will get as a 3% from 1 barrel of crude. So this is a percentage analysis that you will receive from the crude oil, how much percentage you will get the gasoline. Again, some variation can be depending on the source of that crude oil, that you will get a little bit higher or lower percentage of. So this is an average value that you will get out of 1 barrel. As I had referred earlier in our slide, the first process is desalting. In this process, you can see that the crude oil contains so many impurities inside, and those impurities need to be removed. There are some salts also, water also inside, sand also, and this is where we're going to remove that. We call it desalting. In the desalting, you have heat exchangers. So there is a fresh water valve, and we are using mostly electrostatic process for desalting. We can use a gravity based, but in that case, the length of this vessel will be huge. To reduce that length, we are helping in the electricity, so that I will explain in the next slide, which will help us to reduce the size. So in the desalter at the bottom, you enter the feed into it, spray it, and with the help of electricity, you will coagulation process, get more drops of the oil, and it is at the top portion of it collected there, and it's sent for the further process to the industry. So this is the main process what we use in the desalter electricity. In the absence of electric field, you can see that the molecules is actually surrounded by molecules, but once we applied the electric field, it breaks the film on the surface, and then it enhances the process or to coalesce the drops. Once it's coalesced, so you will get a larger drop of it, and it will help us to extract that. So this next slide is showing you two types, or rather 3 types, we can say that. We can use a AC type electrode to get this process of separation. As you can see at the bottom, I'm talking about on the right hand side of the slide, emulsions comes in at the bottom. From here, with the help of electrodes, the oil is at the top, and sand and water at the bottom. We can use this as a dual, as a AC and DC, both electric field, to do this process. So every process has their own limitations, but now in these days, a combination of AC and DC type electrode is used, so efficiency is much higher, than AC or DC respectively. This is another image. You can see that on the bottom it shows the different parts of the desalter. At the top you have a high voltage connection, which is for the transformer to produce the electricity. Then you have the distributor at the bottom. There is a oil outlet collector at the top. In between there is the electrostatic grids and the water on the other, like a muds. We have on the left side, right side, it's showing it. So sometimes we also use a water spray to clean it out if there's a much more mud accumulated at the bottom portion of the desalter. So as we are extracting the water and the muds and the salt, brine solution from the desalter.
Mr. Yasin,
Yeah.
just a quick question. What would be the best way to respond to the comments or questions we are receiving? I will leave up to you. I believe when you are switching from one process to other, if you want me to jump in and show you what comments we have and you can respond to the audience, that would be good. So mostly the questions are related to the process which you are discussing. So when you are finishing that topic, so you would be able to respond to the comments. Would that be a
Sure.
better way, or you want to keep them for certain time?
No, I'm okay. I think so. Once we finish this, like a desalter is one of them. So once we finish the desalter, before we switching to the next process, we can
Okay,
answer this.
so I will follow you when you are ready. Just let me know. I would start reading the comments and you can start responding. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to continue from my last slides, this called two-stage desalting. In the first stage, most of the desalting happen. We remove all the salts and waters, 92 to 94%. We call it single stage, but if we require more than that, so we use a double. So the product which is coming out of the first stage of the desalter, it actually enter into the second stage. We refine it, and then from here approximately 99% has been removed, and that desalted oil actually goes for the export processes. I believe, yeah, so this is the end of this desalter. So yeah, so you can let me know what are the questions.
Before we go to the question, can you try a pointer rather than the mouse as you did at the beginning? Can you try that one right now?
Let me see. I don't know. It can disturb a little bit. Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah, just try if that works for you, because people want to see. Guys, I'm just trying to help you guys. So if Mr. Yasin can have the pointer, it would be easy for you guys to see where he is pointing out.
But where is the screen? I'm not getting that portion now.
It's okay if you can't get that. That's okay. We can live like that. So that's okay.
I know it's far better to have that pointer so that we know that where we are talking about. Okay, so we can go to the comments.
Yes. So first comment I have from from Mr. Saifur Rahman. Can you do the slideshow as you were doing the biggest screen, or you want to move like that? It's up to you. So first question from Mr. Saifur Rahman is 47% gasoline means normal petrol we use in our cars as well as high octane. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a range, means the product which is used 47%, other than the diesel and the jet fuel. Other than that, this is 47. So diesel and jet fuel is not included. So for the transportation, all other gasoline, yes, we are using as a 47%. That is correct. That's what we are using.
Okay, Mr. Yasin, can you see any sidebar where it says annotation? Can you see that somewhere?
No, I don't see that.
Okay, because I believe somehow, sometime your mouse actually draw lines on the screen, which just stays there.
Really?
So it's because of annotation. But if you, I don't want to stuck to that one. That's okay. So next question I have from another fellow. What is the other products in the 18%?
18%. Yeah, so this is when we are using a blending. You know that the cut products, when we are, it depends on the refinery processes and the demands and supply in different areas. So in some of the cases, the specification requires a blending, means a combination of different usage, which we use for in a chemical industry. So for the feedstock of that chemical industry, they have some specification. So we blend different type of specs, off spec or specs, and those are the product mainly for those industries, means the chemical industry as a feedstock.
Okay. Next question I have from another guy whose name is like student. So is fire protection system for various refinery processes are already considered in this seminar?
No, the fire protection system is not considered in this seminar. We are not discussing that, but and depending on the area classification, we do use different types of fire systems. Like in a storage, we use fire suppressing systems, and also wherever there is the chance that your product is getting a flash point and there is a hazardous of producing a fire. So all of those areas, we use the different types of fire suppression systems, but it is not part of this presentation.
Okay. And next question I have is, what is the purpose of try coke in desalter?
Try coke?
No, Isaac, can you repeat your question? I can ask. I think your question is not very clear. So just elaborate, please. So next question I have from Saifur Rahman. Desalter is a electrochemical process, correct?
Chemical?
No, he is asking, is it electrochemical process?
We are using chemicals inside as an additive to increase the separation. There are some demulsifier chemicals being injected to increase the efficiency. Yeah, I can say that because of that, we are adding some of the demulsifier there. You can say that this is just like using as a catalyst to increase the reaction of, to efficiently separating the oil from the water and sand. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Next question I have from Hassan Masood. What is the role of brine? Is it a byproduct or a catalyst?
It's a byproduct. You can feel at the bottom, as I mentioned earlier, you have a salt and you have a sand, you have a water. That combination is at the bottom of the desalter. So that solution which is getting at the bottom is a byproduct. It's not required. So what you are looking is a pure crude oil. So you are extracting the impurities of that. So impurities at the bottom. So impurities are byproducts. They are not the main product.
Mr. Shah Mustafa Kamal is asking, can you actually give some name or specify some main vendors of desalter in Canada?
Yeah, we have in Canada. I think there are a couple of them, but I don't know whether it would be appropriate to give the names. That I'm biased to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there are vendors that we have used in. As you know that I'm working here for last 18 years, so we have worked with couple of them. So there are vendors. But I can send a personal note if you need any name after this
So
presentation.
you
I
know
can
what,
send that.
you know what I will do? We are responding the questions right now, but at the end I will compile these all questions together and I will ask Mr. Yasin to put their response in writing, and then I will share those comments with the answers with the presentation maybe today or tomorrow sometime. So just to keep you have the questions and answer ready with you. So Mr. Yasin, there was a slide of desalter, I think couple of slides up. So Isaac actually clarify his question.
Okay.
If you go back to that slide, uh, desalter slide, it's a black and white picture.
Okay. Just a moment.
So in that
This one.
picture, I believe,
This
yes,
picture.
in this picture, you see towards the right in the middle, they are saying try cokes. So Mr. Isaac is asking the desalters in the right. I would
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
to know what exactly it is and its purpose in the desalter. That is the question.
Okay. So in this area, the viscosity, there are different layers because of the combination of waters, combination of sands, salts, and everything. Based on that, uh, there is instrumentation being used here to monitor that levels. So for example, if the level is lower or higher, so we can just give feedback towards the water injection for that purpose. Other than that, I'm not aware of any use of this tricooks. I can further look into that and get back to you, Isaac.
Okay. So as I mentioned, so I'll put all the comments, your questions in one file, and Mr. Yasin will give a little bit more detailed answer there. So just to help you out. Okay. So next question I have is from Arshad. How this oil sand distillation is different from conventional crude?
Conventional crude impurities are much lesser and different types, but in the heavy crude oil, so the definition of the crude oil, which is we are getting out of the ground in the Middle East or in Africa, uh, the impurities inside is much different. But when we talk about the heavy oil, you know that the heavy oil actually is a different type of crude which is entrapped into the rocks. And for that reason, it is very much viscous, and also you have to break it down uh, at the bottom, so you will have the rocks also particle inside, and you have to use different heating mediums so that the viscosity may improved and you can pump it out. Otherwise, very viscous inside the formation. Is not without heating, you cannot take it out. So to answer to the question, the heavy oil here, like in Canada, uh, the impurities insides are different than the impurities what you are getting in Middle East or elsewhere in the world for the crude. I don't know whether I answered the question or not. Should we move to the next?
Yeah, just a couple of more questions. So, how many type of desalters we have? That's one question. Around what pressure the desalting process operates? That's the second question. And I will I'll hold few more questions for your next slide probably. So we should continue after these two questions, and I will ask these other questions afterward.
Okay, yeah. So the first question is you are saying that what pressure we're gonna use this. So desalting pressure, depending on the formation where we are getting it, it can varies from 1000 PCI to 1500 PCI pressure. And what other question was?
The other question was what
Types.
yeah, types.
Yeah. So one desalter is, as I mentioned earlier, gravity based. So you are not using any electrostatic uh, uh, process. So based on electrostatic AC types, DC types, and dual frequency types. So these are the three types that we are using as a desalter. But if it is a gravity based, it means the process would be depending wholly on the gravity. Efficiency would be very low, and the size of the desalter would be much higher because the droplets of the oil has to be separated from all other impurities. It will take much longer time to do that process. So normally we are using electrostatic, and electrostatic has three types: AC, DC, and dual frequency.
I think you can continue now for the next slides, and I'll have questions ready for you after your next process.
Okay, so as before, I mentioned that after desalting, it goes to the atmospheric column. So the main process in the atmospheric column, before we go there, we try to understand what is the boiling point. It's a very basic definition. The boiling point is the temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to the pressure of the atmosphere on the liquid. So this graph showing you mixture A and B components. On the left hand side, if you see that there is a pure B component, and on the right hand side is a pure A component. So A component has a higher temperature at which it boils, and component of B has a lower temperature where it boils. So there are two components which boils at two different temperatures. So in between these 2 points, you have a different concentration, like a C2 concentration. So you will see that the mostly because the temperature is higher than the boiling point of B component, so you will be having a more vapors of B, and you have some liquids of component A because its temperature is still not at its boiling point. So at concentration C1, you can see that you have less vapor and more liquid of the A components, and at the end of the right hand side, at the boiling point of A starts, so that also vaporizes. So this is a basic definition that we use in the distillation. So main purpose of the distillation is to extract the elements from the mixture. The next slide is showing you different temperatures for different products. At the top one, if you see the gases is below 30, there is a relationship between the carbon chain and the boiling point. If your carbon chain is very long, its boiling temperature would be higher. If the carbon chain is less, the boiling temperature is less. Like gases, if you normally see, like say methane, so methane boiling temperature would be around minus 160, 1.5 degrees Celsius, and your butane, normally we use, its boiling temperature is minus 1 degree Celsius, and pentane, the boiling temperature is 36 degrees Celsius. So you can see that as your carbon chains goes on, its boiling temperature also get higher. Naphtha, you can see the boiling point is around 100 to 200, and the carbon chain is from 8 to 12 molecules long. Pay attention to the atmospheric residue, which would be the bottom portion of your atmospheric column. Here, the boiling point is more than 450 degrees Celsius, and the carbon chain is over 30. So more than 30 carbon molecules are in this residue. Here we start our distillation column. We call it atmospheric column also, as the pressure is actually near to the atmospheric. There is no vacuum, there is no high pressure. So these columns are designed for atmospheric pressure. The process is that you heat the crude oil in the furnace, and from this it feed in the middle of the column. In the middle of column now, there would be separation occurring now here, depending on the temperature. All of those, with the help of trays, it goes up. So all the boiling point, which is higher boiling point, would be at the bottom. As you know that I explained in a previous slide that all the lighter which has a low carbon chain, their boiling temperature is lower, and all the heavy which has more carbons, their boiling temperature is higher. That would be at the bottom. So different feeds, you can see that, sorry, these temperatures are all degree Fahrenheit. So at fuel oil and lubricants, gas oils, kerosene oils, and naphtha. Naphtha is at the top, and there is a light at the top, which are the gases from the top. Here I have another slide. The
Mr. Yasin, can you do the slideshow because few people can't see clearly, the fonts look a little smaller.
Oh, okay, I can do that. So I will go back to the slide. Yeah, I think so. Now I maybe.
Yeah, this is better. This is better.
This is better? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can just go through a little bit again shortly. Your crude oil, you're taking the crude oil and heating it up, and then you're sending into the atmospheric column. We call atmospheric column as this column is designed near atmospheric pressure. It's a pressure vessel, but the pressure is near atmospheric. And it consists of different trays. All the, here the separation occurs. All the lighter component of the crude oil goes up, and we collect it at the top as a gases, and at the bottom would be heavier. As I explained earlier, the carbon change is longer, so it's more heavy, so boiling temperature will be much more higher than the others components. So in between intermediates, we have fuel oil, lubricants, gas oil, kerosene, naphtha. So these are not the final product. These are the name actually I have mentioned. So there are processes in between required to get the kerosene or to get the gas oils. These are the process that we explain in our next slides. So here you can see the same slide, but it gives you a residue more at the bottom, which is the bitumen, and the fuel oil at the for the ships, diesel oil for the cars, kerosene for the aircraft fuels, and naphtha, which is a feedstock for chemicals, and gasoline, which is a petrol that we are using it. And at the top, we have the refinery gases, which ultimately can get methane, ethane, propane, pentane from that product. The temperature here is around 350 to 380 degrees Celsius, what we are putting the heating crude oil. The difference between this slide and the previous slide is the feed is actually coming at the bottom in this case, and in the previous slide the feed was coming at the middle of the column. I think this I have explained earlier. The bottom liquid has the boiling point, which is more than 400 degrees Celsius. So if the temperature goes beyond that, it can actually crack the products. We don't want to do that. So for that reason, all the bottoms actually we go into the vacuum distillator. We will explain it later. So this is the bottom product, what you're gonna get at the bottom of the atmospheric column. As at the bottom, you know that the carbon chain is very high, so their boiling point would be much more like a 500, 600 degrees Celsius. But for that temperature, there would be some cracking happening. So what we can do otherwise, if we lower the pressure, so it means we can decrease the boiling point. So this is what we are doing it in a vacuum distillation column. The main purpose of this is all the bottoms, which are the heavy carbons from the atmospheric distillation column, we feed into this column. We call it vacuum because it is under negative pressure, 0.7, 1.9. These are the absolute pressure what we are using it. So in this case, the size of the molecules is big because of the you can see that the pressure is low. You need a more space for that. So the sizes of this vacuum distillation covers are huge. So this size is it can range up to 10 meter. You can see on the left hand side is a picture from the field of the vacuum distillation column, and the height can goes up to 50 meters. It's a huge column, and I explained you why it is a huge because of the low pressure. We are working in a low pressure, and the volume you need gases need more volume for that. In this column also we are using the trays and the packing, and it is used to get the more contact between the liquid and the vapors. So this one is a column, is a typical PFD, process flow diagram for the vacuum distillation column. You can see that there is upstream you have a heat exchanger, and the feed is coming from the bottom of the atmospheric distillation, and again from this column you will get lighter at the top and heavier at the bottom. So the product from here is a light vacuum gas oil and a heavy vacuum gas oil. I believe that, yeah, sorry, formal. So any question on the, we can go into, if we have any question for the vacuum distillation column, or
Yes.
we can.
Yes, I have few questions. So Mr. Mustafa Kamal, he's asking, as mentioned in distillation column are designed on atmospheric pressure. Are distillation columns pressure vessels?
For the design point of view, we design it for more than 14 psi, although it's not a requirement, but we do design it for the, so it depends on the operators if they would like to have that as a stamped vessel. So the answer to the question is yes, we do design it as a pressure vessel, but are we stamping it or not? It depends on the operators, but we do design it for the higher pressure.
So when you say stamping, it means are we considering this technically as a pressure vessel or not? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it means if you are stamping it, it means that there are some standard requirements that you have to follow, and also the fabrication shop has to follow to produce it. So it means you are stamping it as a pressure vessel. But if you are designing it, not stamping it, so that's also, so normally we design it for the pressure vessel, yes.
Okay. Another question I have from Saifur Rahman. What is the normal wastage percentage due to heating in distillation process?
Wastage percentage, you mean the wastage of the product?
Yeah, wastage of any product which being produced during this distillation. So is there any, let's put the question in this way. Is there any wastage during the distillation process? If yes, what is the standard practice percentage of wastage?
I don't know, should we say a wastage or not? As I explained, that at the bottom you will get the residual. So means anything which is not been distillated, but the fine tune to that answer is that there are always intermediate from one stage to the other stage. Uh, the boiling points are very close, so it means the product would be not been separated 100%. So in that case, we use a downcomer in the column, and that downcomer will take that liquid and we put it again, heat it up so that you will get more vapors out of it. So there is no 100% separation that you can do it, but you can get maximum out of it, let's say 90-95%. So I'm not saying as a terminology as a waste, but I can say that, yeah, can we separate one particular product 100%? So answer is absolute 100% is not possible.
Okay. And by the way, just in addition to what you are saying, vacuum distillation column is picking the product from the bottom of the main distillation column. So it means whatever the residuals are, we are doing further distillation in the vacuum. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
But it's happen on not on all the refineries. So refinery decided to take the residual and send it to another facility. So what are it all depend on the facility if they would like to further get product out of the bottoms or not.
So it
But
depends. It depends on the economics what they have decided for their
yeah,
plant. Okay.
yeah, that's right.
Okay. So next question I have from Mr. Isaac. Actually, he has two questions. So I'll cite one first. Is there any sort of heating occurring inside the column? I would like to know the different ranges of temperatures are maintained inside the columns.
There is no heating inside of it. Heating always occur outside of it. I can go back to the slides.
Yeah, you have a heater outside the distillation, and once it is heated, it goes into the distillation column and is separated out on the basis of their temperature.
Yeah. So if yeah, so I'm on a slide now, vacuum distillation. So if you see closely here, at the bottom we are saying hot feed from the feed heater. So it means heating is occurring outside of it. So the products comes in, and through the trays and packing, it's move up. So in one of the stage, let's say the intermediate, I said here is a heavy vacuum gas, which is HVGO in the picture. We take it out and we heat it up and then introduce again at the top portion of the uh, distillation column. So heating always occur outside to get more purification, but it's not happening inside the column.
Okay. And the second question he has, he would like to know how it is possible to separate hydrocarbons having boiling point over 750 Fahrenheit when the crude is heated in the furnace only up to 750. Could you get the question?
Sorry.
So
How
what
we can?
he is saying that how we can separate the hydrocarbons which has the boiling point above 750 Fahrenheit, because in the furnace the
Okay.
product is being heated up to
Yeah.
750. Is
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
any way for do that?
Yeah. So what I think so the answer to that is a vacuum, right? So what we are saying is at a higher temperature, the I can go back to the slide and show that there is a yeah. So you can see that the cracking molecule can crack apart at temperature more, which is I'm saying here degrees Celsius, which is more than 750 Fahrenheit. So yes, uh, the question is that for this temperature, when we heat it up in a furnace, at the bottom, the temperature is approximately that, let's say, for example, 750 Fahrenheit, or let's say 400 degrees Celsius. So there is no separation occurring here. So it means all the component will, their temperature will be less than this. It will be separated in this column. But anything happen at the bottom, we take this out. Now we don't want to heat it up at a higher temperature because of the cracking. So the relationship between a boiling point and the pressure, as I explained earlier, the boiling only happened when the vapor pressure is equal to the pressure where the liquid is. So if we take this bitumen, which is at the bottom, into a negative pressure, we call it like vacuum. So it means now their boiling temperature, which was let's for example was 400, now it will be reduced. So it means that at the lower temperature now we can separate that because of the lower combination of temperature and pressure at the lower level. We can separate them.
Okay. So next question I have from Saifur Rahman. Height of the column varies as per capacity plant. I believe yes, this is right. It depends on the. I'm giving answer on behalf of Mr. Yasin. So this is depends on the refinery or the plant capacity, and the height of the column depends on the capacity of the plant. Correct?
No,
No,
not exactly.
I take my words back.
The reason is that it depends on the what type of product you want to take it. Let's say if you don't want to take a lighter product, because the lighter product will only happen at the top. So all the economics actually depend on where that refinery is, that product and the surrounding of that product, what you require. If your refinery is designed only for the diesel or the jet fuel, and you are not interested in the going up to the lighter end of it, so what you will do, you will stop your process at the jet point, and anything happen above that, you just take it as a product. But if you would like to have the feedstock for the petroleum industry, so then you have to have that product at the top end of it, so their height will be more. So it is a combination of what is the requirement of that area where the industry is, and your refinery is target value, means what you are targeting, which market you are targeting. So all the refineries are not producing everything. Refineries are based on the economics and the requirement of the area where they are situated.
Okay. So next question I have from Mr. Fahim. He's saying how you compare the percent of steam used in conventional refinery process compared to SAGD.
It's a huge difference. I don't know which stage you are talking about. It's a general question, I believe, that the steam used in the conventional versus steam used in SAGD.
Yes.
Yeah, SAGD process, we are using a huge amount of steam. The ratio of 1 to 3.5 or 1 to 4 means if this is the ratio that you want to have the steam, because you have to inject inside your formation to get the viscosity higher, so that crude can move up. And that is not required in a conventional, because in a conventional you are using maybe steam in a processes, which is the refinery process, but you're not using the steam into getting out of the ground. So it is a huge difference. In a SAGD, you need an extra amount of, way extra amount of steam, even to bring that crude up to the surface.
Okay. So next question I have, different range, how you maintain the different ranges of temperature inside the column, atmospheric column.
I don't know, I don't get that question right. If they are trying to say that the stream which is inside, if it moves up actually, and you are extracting at a different level, the temperature ranges in between the, let's say, a jet fuel oil around, I'm just throwing a number, let's say 200 or something like that. So there would be a product once you are getting at that stage. So all the vapor which are passing through the tray or the packing, that temperature will be plus minus 510 degrees Celsius. So if it is, let's say, 200, for example, so it vary 190 to 210. So you are getting out of it. Maintaining it, you are spraying it actually, as I explained earlier, you are taking some bleed out of it and you are heating it up so that you can get more product out of it and recycle it at the top portion of it, so that you will get more product. Maintaining a temperature, as you know that this is temperature sensitive, right? So wherever the temperature is, that range, you will extract that in your process. All the vapors will go up. Are we getting 100% out of it? No. Some product will remain inside and it will go into the next stage.
Yeah, that was the last question I have. So you can continue through the next level.
Okay. So how time-wise, how we are going? Reformer is next process. This is the product that what we are mostly interested in. So this is the process to produce high octane number reformate, which is a main component for motor fuel. I select this process. The reason is because all the transportation in the what we are using, the car, we call it, is not a commercial transport ports, domestic as well as commercial, also means the truck and everything. So high octane product, how are we gonna getting it? So that process is called the reformer. So in this case, again, distillation would be a column, the process what you're going to use. And in this case, naphtha, which is a lighter product at the top before the gases, you take that naphtha and use a catalytic reformer to produce your high octane. And in the catalytic reformer, you will get the hydrogen also. So before any product which goes into the high octane, important point is that they have to remove a sulfur. And there should not be a sulfur content inside. So there would any crude which in this case, before it comes to the distillation purpose, the desulfurization need to be done. So this is a process, catalytic process. If you see at the bottom on the left side, naphtha which is going inside, this is distillation column. From here you get one bleed out of it. I don't know if you can see that, my cursor, and you wanna heat it up and go into the reactor. All the reactor actually has a catalytic inside, and then you have heat it up again. It goes to the second reactor and the third reactor. So in these different processes of the catalytic, you are actually increasing the octane value of your product. And in this process, you are using a fixed bed catalytic reactor. The pressure is from 100 to 1000 psi, and this one actually work in a pairs because you are regenerating it with, as you are using a catalytic, so catalytic need to be regenerated. So while you are regenerating it, you have to use the parallel. So you can think of two parallel stream working together. So if one is the reactor using a catalytic, after some time that catalytic actually you can see as a sponge. So sponge will absorb up to certain level some of the things. Once it is done, it will not be an active component of that catalytic. So we call it to regenerate it. So we reverse the process and clean it up. And so while we are doing that cleaning, the other second line can work and keep the process going on. So we use this in a pair, so the process is continuous. I think so. I will cover this, and after that cracking, we can take the question. So cracking is actually a large hydrocarbon are broken into smaller fragments. And as you can see in an example I have given here, large molecule C17H36 goes into a different component of it, C9, H20, and C8, H16 carbon, smaller molecule. So hydrocracking was developed to combine the catalytic cracking and the hydrogenation and produce no coke, because the coke is a very hard component of it, and it can it's very hard to clean it up. So the coker is one of the process in the refinery. So if anyone is familiar of the coker, you need to clean it up after a cycle, and you need to have a very high pressure jet to it is just like you have to scrape it actually, from the surface of the coker. So cooking is not good for the in this also again you are using catalytic C10H22, and it goes to ethane, propane, and pentane. So ethane is a propane. These are the polypropylene and products being used in a chemical industry to produce most of the products. It's a process what we are using a different type of reform catalytic processes. There are different pressure. Um, One is higher pressure, which is 1.3 to 3 megapascal, and then there is a medium one, which is 2.1 megapascal, and the continuous regeneration is actually a lower pressure, 0.35 to zero point 0.9 megapascal. And the light end LPG, we're getting out of it, and reformate 84 to 85%, which is your gasoline, and hydrogen, as I mentioned in my equation earlier, there is a hydrogen produced, which is used in a hydrotreating plant. So feedstock, which is a naphtha in this case, is heated up to around 500 to 600 degrees Celsius, and the pressure is 1000 psi, and we are using a cold naphtha to quench it, to cool it down, heat it up and cool it down in the distillation column. This is again thermal cracking. Another, you can see that there are main column and then there's a regenerator column. Yeah, so I think so we can take questions.
Okay, so I have first question is from Mr. Ataullah. He's saying his question is kind of generic, but he's saying that can we get design code for major components?
Okay, so whenever we are saying a pressure vessel, so pressure vessel is actually as per the ASME. And again, I'll depend on the pressure, what we are talking about. So most of the refinery here, we're gonna get the ASME 8, section 1. And sometime we use ASME 8, section 2 also, div 2 or div 1 and div 2. So these are the main ASME 8 when we say pressure vessel. But don't confuse it with the furnaces. They are also pressure component, but those are actually ASME 1, not the section 8. So in this case, what we have talked till now, basically they are coming in ASME section 8, div 1.
Okay, and just a side note on this one. Any kind of engineering standard if you need, I may be able to help you to get that standard. So 95% chances that whatever standard you are looking for, I can manage to arrange that for you. So if you need any standard, so please contact me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Send me the text with the standard what you need, and I will try to help you guys to get the standard for you guys. Okay, let's go to the next question. Mr. Rizvi is asking, what catalyst chemical do we need in catalytic cracking point?
Yeah. All those catalytic, actually, those are a product from a different suppliers, and their names and characteristics are not been disclosed. But their characteristics, they will give you the characteristics, but they will not disclose their technology. I think the very reason is that in the commercial market, They will describe the function and characteristics that it can do like this, but what are the composition they are using it, they will not disclose it. So they have a different product name rather than giving the exact combination of it.
Okay. And next question I have is from Brother Shah Mustafa Kamal. Is thermal cracking still used in design or obsolete?
No, plants are still working on that, but catalytic is more, I should say, using in the industry than the thermal one.
Okay. So last question is not for you. It's a general question which many guys are asking me regarding the slides and the videos. So this webinar is being recorded, and video will be posted on the Facebook page which I shared in your comments at the beginning. If you scroll up, there would be Facebook pages, so you can go and like that page, and that would be there, plus in the YouTube also. And the slides, I will consult with Mr. Yasin. I think if there is no copyright issue, then probably we would be able to share the slides with you guys also. But for the questions, as I mentioned, I will compile all the questions and I will send it to Mr. Yasin for respond, and he will compile the answers, and I will share the question answer file also. So these are the general response to all the questions that people are asking me in the private chat or general. So you would be able to get the recording on the YouTube, Facebook, and you can download from there. Plus the slides, I will check with Mr. Yasin, and if this is possible, I will share with you guys. But for the question and answer, definitely I would be actually compiling them together and will share with you guys. Thank you. So Mr. Yasin, this is it for the question. You can
Okay,
carry on.
all right. So yeah, so this is the last slide in this series before we move into the storage and transportation. So this gives you a visual actually with the carbon chain. At the bottom, you can see the carbon chain is about more than 70 in the residual. The carbon chain for the fuel oil, this is about C20 to C70. These are all ranges actually, no? Lubricating oil, C20 to C50. So lubrication oil, waxes, polishes are there. And C14, C20, this is diesel oil. And then you have a kerosene, paraffin oil, and then the petrol and naphtha with the product, I can say, and these are the gases at the top. So next session is slightly we're gonna go here is for the storage and transportation. So for the storage, mostly we are using tanks. In the tank, we used a fixed roof and open top also. There is an open top. Then there are floating roof, which is external or internal. If you see from your right top picture, uh, there is a tank which you can see there having a roof is actually inside. So these are all open top internal floating roof type of tanks. If in the picture, I don't know whether if you can see it clearly that there are 2 or 3 tanks in a condition that their roofs are actually going in. So there are floating roof tanks but open top. At the bottom left hand side, those are the fixed roof type of tank. It depends on the product what you are using. Either you need an internal floating roof or not, depending on the vapor pressure of the product what you are storing inside. And the code what we are using is 620 API and 650. We are using the code for these storage tanks. Spherical LNG, you can see that on the right corner, spherical type of tanks, and dome roof you can see at the bottom. Mostly these roof materials are fiberglass material, and the code I have mentioned is API 650 for the atmospheric, and for 620 if you have a slightly higher pressure, which is but should not be more than 2.5 psi. So this is the transportation and how we're going to transport the product. So you can see that different modes of it, marine and through pipeline, through rail and trucks, and all of these been designed under different codes. And pipeline can also be in the sea, because there are facilities which is in the deep sea. So you need to transport that to the shore with the help of the pipeline through the sea. So cost of transportation, if you see on the top, the price which is given here is a crude oil price and the refined product. So you can see from 2009 to 2013, this graph, the price is going up and up from $7 towards the 8.3 per barrel. And the refined product cost is slightly lower than the crude. In 2009, it is about 6.6 versus 2013, it is 6.6. So it's approximately the same. There is a slight variation in the refined product, but the price of the crude oil actually goes up. Different type rail, trucks, and domestic shipping, they have their own advantages and disadvantages. And in the rail, there is a high, regular, and fast, and compatible of large bulk transportation and low carbon dioxide emission. For the truck, there is no restriction. Ship directly to a destination, can ship smaller loads. So this slide is interest to me, that it gives you the idea that cost of producing the crude oil per barrel in a different part of the world. As you can see that Canada is just, at the second top. The capital expenditure as well as operational. So you can see the operational cost is higher than the capital expenditure cost. In US, capital expenditure cost is higher, but the operational expenditure is less. And you can see in Saudi Arabia and Iraq at the bottom, their cost is much less than $10 per barrel. So if we send this to the pipe, the cost is approximately, is an average cost, and it's based on 2019, I believe, 18 or 19, 2018 or 19 cost based. And from the pipe it is about $5, and through the rail it is $10 to $15, and to the truck it is $18 to $20. So as you can see that there are pros and cons. The safest side is the pipeline, as we are advocating it, but there is only negative is that if there is a leakage, how to detect the leakage, because this is out of sight. So you need to have some monitoring system for the pipeline. But it's the safest and cheapest way to transport the product. I just included this slide which shows you at the far right hand side, November 19 to January 2020, the cost of the ship in the sea. Actually, you can see it reduced because of supply and demand, which is my next topic. I don't know whether I will get the time or not. So the demand is low, and that is why the cost is actually very high now. It was 2018-19 was very high cost, but now here in January 20 we are getting very low cost for all of these costs are $60,000 per day. Is a huge cost of the container vessels, we call it, in the ship for the LNG. I think so. That's it. I have the supply and demand, but as we were discussing earlier, that if people are interested, we can go. I can spend maybe 15-20 minutes more on that. If not, then we can take more question and we can stop the presentation here.
Let's see if first respond some questions, and then if people want to, we can go through this. So I have questions from one question is merits and demerits are different types of storage tanks.
Merits and demerits. Yeah. Now in the storage, it depends on what product we are using is. Because in some of the product what we use, the type what I have explained to you, like LNG, they are highly pressurized. So you need to have a spherical equipment to store it. You cannot store it in a flat above ground tanks. So I don't know whether we call it advantage or disadvantage. We should be saying that what is the more suitable for a suitable product. So it depends on the product that you want to store. So I should say that if the pressure is very high, then you need to have a spherical storage. But if the pressure is like atmospheric tank, as I explained earlier, so if your pressure is very low, then you're gonna go by spherical tank. But I can comment on this advantage and disadvantage is that if your vapor pressure is there, is a high vapor pressure, and your product is actually volatile, then you need to have a floating roof. Because the floating roof actually will minimize your vapor pressure. So it keep it, so roof is always intact with your product. So it means you're not making more of the vapors. So it means you're not losing your product, because losing your product is your loss. All the vapor will go into the atmosphere, and also it creates a danger. So you have to have another system, we call it vapor recovery system. You need to design that if you are not using your floating roofs. So I can say that depending on the product, what you are storing it, uh, depend on that application will describe that what type of storage that you want to use it. So there are underground storage also. The picture all I shows you is these are above ground, but there are the plotted like a bullets. We are using mounded bullets, which are buried actually inside uh, because of different reasons, and they can be below ground also. So all of your like fuel, if you go into the market, all of the tanks in the fuel station, they are buried below ground. So depending on the application, I will not use the terminology advantage or disadvantage. I will use the terminology that depending on the product, what type of storage that you need.
Another question I have, some people want to continue the presentation to go to the supply demand curves also, so we can continue. And if someone's are not interested to look at the economics and the demand and supply, they can definitely welcome to leave. But there is another question: why we have the flare? What is the purpose of flare?
Yeah. So the byproduct, the product which are coming or different parts of the component in the refinery. So those vapors actually need to be, if we can recover uh, some product out of it, we recover it. All other, the economic says that recovery of that is not economical, and you can burn it in the atmosphere depending on the rules and regulation of different part of the world. So if the economics says that to extract from that vapor is not economical, so you burn it. But if the regulations are tight, so then we need to have that recovery system. So the products are burned into the atmosphere that are present in vapors, which are, I should be saying it is a waste, and it depends on the which part of the world you are, whether you can burn or not. The flares are actually using to burn that product vapors into the atmosphere.
Okay. And I think that was the last question. You can continue, but before you continue, I just wanted to let people know, the people are asking. So I'm sharing my my Facebook and Twitters and the links again, just in case if you want to check the videos and the comments and everything there. So recorded video is already on the Facebook. So I'm just sharing. So I'm sharing two types of links. One is for technical engineering and project management kind of webinars, seminars, and trainings. You can find a lot of materials on those. And second section of my comments is we are also doing some mind sciences and leadership and the personality development webinars also. So if you are interested, you can join the other web pages in the link I provided. And there is one more seminar tomorrow, which is regarding the employee versus business minded mindset. So we will be discussing what is the difference between the mindset of an employee and a businessman. So that would be interested. It is a series of webinars. The first webinar will be tomorrow at uh, 12 p.m. Calgary time. I'm sharing the link of the webinars with you guys. If you guys are interested, you can just actually join the meeting tomorrow. So that's I already shared. It is also free. It's a 1.5 hour webinar tomorrow. So Mr. Yasin, I believe you can continue with
Yeah. So
supply.
this is thank you to everyone who were with us and now leaving. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you have got some ideas overall different processes in the refinery. So I will now go into the next. How much time, Heather, we have?
We have 1 hour, so you can continue maybe whatever time you take. But I think this is very interesting portion of the presentation which is actually related more of current economic situations, so we can see what future looks like, where the demands and supply goes, and this can actually give you an indication what we need to do. And a few people are suggesting some topics, and thank you very much. We appreciate if you can suggest me any topic on engineering, project management, or personality development, or the mind sizes, or anything. So we will try to arrange the webinars or seminars, if we can do by ourselves, or we can find any expert, but we will try to accommodate your requirements. So please suggest me what topics you would like to have webinars or seminars in more details. Thank you very much. So Mr. Yasin, sorry.
Oh, thank you. So we go into the main purpose, as Heather has in introduction, that where we are going uh, towards this, because in these days there are a lot of going on in the media and about the oil and gas. So here, all of this presentation is based on the International Energy. There is a forum that predict and all based on 2019 reports. I'm presenting this. I have taken this data from there. So as you can see here, this graph, a bit old graph, that million per barrel per day, million barrels per day is the production as well as demand. So if you see this blue color, it is actually a production, and the consumption is a brown color. So there are very much hand in hand. So there is no supply that is higher than the demand, so it keep close, which control the prices also. So beauty of this graph is that it's 2018 from onward is showing a forecast, and I can see till November, December of 2019, this forecast is very much true, that we are approximately slightly above than 100 million barrel per day. So which is so this prediction is actually very close to the reality. What we were it was predicting for Q1 of 2019. So we were very close to that. But after that, everybody knows that uh, uh, coronavirus and its impact is there, and that is a natural. I don't know how we can predict about it. There is a terminology here, OECD and non-OECD. So Operation of Economic Cooperation Developing Countries is OECD. All other countries are non-OECD. So in this slide, you can see that this is a projection from 2010 to 2050 for next 40 years. So in this area, if you see, the transportation factor is growing. And somebody can ask a question that, okay, so we are going towards the electric cars, so what's going to happen? So you can see that to produce electricity also, and to have that station also, so some form of energy is required. So it means you need a fuel actually to get into that. So indirectly, you need that energy. And most of the next 40 years, we see that the development going to happen in non-OECD, especially in India and China. They are going to be two major components in next 40 years. And the consumption of energy in China, India will drive this the market. You can see the Europe, America is very slow demand because we already reached into a certain level that delta would be less in 40 years if we compare with the non-OECD versus OECD. So huge potential would be in Asia, or we call it non-OECD countries. So different form of energies. As I explained, you can see coal will stay there, although the growth is very low. The growth of natural gas and electricity is going up for next 40 years. So these and the liquid fuels like propane and butane, this type of things, right? And even the jet fuels, and those are the liquid fuels. So these three areas would be the areas that energy is going to be consumed: natural gas, electricity, and the liquid fuels. Again, this one is the 20% they are predicting will increase the production versus OPEC, non-OPEC and OPEC countries. The transportation would be the sector. Why I'm interested in transportation? Because of the obviously fuel. That is the sector that is going to be increase 20%. This is a challenge. Another field that we should be looking at, the carbon dioxide emission. The non-OECD, as is expected, because we're going to use more and more energy into the non-OECD countries, so which also relate towards the carbon dioxide emission. So this is one of the area that one should be thinking of, that how we can reduce the carbon dioxide emissions. So all the opportunities that we can introduce the technologies, like I can give you an example, that the fire heater, what we were using 20 or 25 years before, their emission levels versus the fire heater what we are using now, there is a advancement into that. So there are low emission, ultra low emissions fire heaters are available. So wherever there is a furnace, there is a requirement of fire heater. So fire heater is a technology that can reduce the emission also. So those type, this is just only an example, saying it that is one of the area that in the future need to be concentrated, that how we can reduce this carbon dioxide emission. I don't know whether this graph is not showing a second graph into it. So still you can see renewable energy is another area that will increase in next 40 years. So you can see the green graph on my left hand side, very steep curve actually going up. So this projection is for the renewable energy. So this is one of the area that will flourish And the second one, if you see the petroleum and the other liquids, is still the area that will grow. Again, I think energy consumption point of view, India and China believed to be, because the growth will be there, so that energy consumption would be higher in the rest of the world. If we combine these, China and India, that would be approximately, how much is that? 60% of that will be used by these two countries. So electricity is one of the area. So electricity production would be, as I explained, electric car. So you need to have some stations. So storage is one of the another area that would be growing. How are we going to store the electricity? I mean the batteries. Tesla is one of the examples they are working on, and there are other companies investing their money to get to increase the capacity of the storage for the electricity. I think same graph is showing transportation. In transportation, the motor gas oil would be the major portion of it. And electricity, if you compare the total amount of what you're going to use in the transportation, still your motor gasoline, it means your refineries are there, jet fuel is there, diesel is there. So all these bottom three on the left, right hand side graph, you can see diesel, jet fuel, and motor gasoline. These are the product of the refinery. And it has a major portion into the future also. This just only a comparison in the transportation, the freight versus passengers. And you can see the non-OECD countries has in the passenger is more growth is going to be happen in those countries. And in the OECD, in the transportation passenger, I mean, there is the rate of the growth is not high. It's approximately the flat curve actually now. Yeah, I think so. That's it I have for today. Thank you very much once again.
Yasin sir, there are a few questions. If you want to answer, or it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So we can quickly respond to questions if possible. Otherwise, we can leave it to the compilation.
Yeah.
How important is to have a downstream unit attached to a refinery?
Yeah. So see that this is all a spectrum, like a spectrum. If we are saying everything together, like my midstream and the downstream together, again, it goes back to the economics. That if I want to ship my, let's say, product from here to Middle East, how much cost I have to pay? If my market demand is not local, it is outside. So how much I have to pay for the transportation to get the product into that market? So the economics actually drive that. So you can see most of the facilities, they are designed for a specific range of the product. So it is not economical that one facility can produce everything. The reason is your cost will be much higher, and your profit margin will be low. The reason, again, your consumption. You are not consuming every product what you are producing in your uh, downstream, because in the downstream mostly it is a petrochemical plants like a fertilizer. So you will produce fertilizer where the demand is. You will not produce a fertilizer and then ship it to somewhere else, right? So petrochemical plants, which are the downstream, depend on the demand. Uh, so I don't see a facility that the midstream and the downstream together. Uh, in my mind, any example I can search if you like, but mostly majority of that you will see that the your downstreams are separate than your midstream and upstreams.
Okay. Is there any way to calculate the complexity of a refinery? Is there any straight way to do that, or it's not even a question?
No. Question is a valid question. Uh, there are different ways. One technology called pinch technology. Pinch technology actually refer towards the heat balance, heat energy, that how much heat you are putting inside of that process and how much you can recover out of it. So as a complete whole system, you do the analysis that at what point you are giving the heat, at what point you are getting out of it, and what is the efficiency of that system. So we call it a pinch analysis. So it is used to uh, uh, increase the efficiency of the whole process. Whatever the process from A to B, you are using it. With the help of that analysis, you will get the efficiency of that system. So if the efficiency is higher, you will go for that. Otherwise, you would like to optimize the heat recovery, heat usage of that system.
That's good. Thank you. And I have a couple of more questions. One is, does a refinery design have a separate sour gas treatment facility always?
Yeah, it's required. Sulfur component, as you can see that for the catalytic reaction, I mentioned that before you go into that facility, you need to have SRU, sulfur recovery units. Uh, uh, but mostly not, it is necessary that you should have. So what the people do, they take the stock and send it to the facility which has the SRU and further down processes. So if it is not economical, not everyone should have the SRU units.
And one, I would take the last question. That is, which pipeline material would you recommend for a high sour gas pipeline?
Base material would be the carbon steel, but then you have to have the liner inside actually. That is actually depend on how much sour it is, and then they can recommend, the metallurgist can recommend that lining.
Okay. And last is not the question, is question and comments both. So few people ask me in the emails that can they claim the PDUs in the Primavera in PMI for their PMP for this webinar. Yes, you can claim that. So if you go to the PMI, they say I forgot the link, but they say the training from some vendor. It may not be the vendor of PMI, but from anywhere. So you can still claim that two PDUs. And Yasin Saab, this is question for you. Some people are asking, can they claim the CPD from APEGA for this webinar?
Yeah, they can do that.
Okay. So Fahim, you asked this question, so you already got the response. So thank you very much for this. What is what is your email, Mustafa, if you wanna share it? Okay. Uh, so if you guys don't send me the emails, so please do send me. So I will be sending the material through the emails, and your email will automatically be in my distribution list for my future webinars. If you don't like to have, you would have the option to unsubscribe. So please feel free to unsubscribe if you don't want to have my emails. And it would be a good idea if you can actually like the pages of ACME projects and the winning edge. The winning edge is devised to motivate the people. So most of the motivational programs and the leadership and personality development program will be coming through the winning edge, and we will be doing those winning edge webinars in English as well as in Urdu and Hindi as well, to support our families, friends, everyone, because we are talking about the mind sciences and personality development. So please do like those pages, so you should be updated for all the upcoming programs. So that's it. Thank you very much, and we'll keep you posted for upcoming webinars and seminars. Thank for your participation. Thank you very much, Yasin Saab. That was a great presentation you have done, and we all enjoyed that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.